and he died a few years back. After Operation Blue Star, Sundarji was changed man. Sober, his laughter all but gone. He shrugged away my concern, assuring me I will get over it, but he never did. I have been trained to fight an enemy, not to die our time, he said. Now, nobody's highlighting these things. And I took this, I went to British Library in England, I pulled up, I said, surely General Dwyer's wife had similar sentiments. And guess what? I pulled up the diaries of General Dwyer, his wife was writing the exact same things. Because people who have done this, they can't sleep at night because they've done horrible stuff under government orders and they chose to compromise with their conscience. So his wife is reporting that Sundarji acted like that, to her he would say, no, everything is fine, but he was never fine because he knew he did the wrong thing. And by the way, he died in an army hospital in Delhi and he was a vegetable for several months. So there's some sort of cosmic justice in these things as well. Okay. First slide I mentioned talked about the third agency. Here is more information on it. The government claims that in the Warsaw there were large quantities of weapons and ammunition and explosives, automatic rifles and anti-tank weapons. This is written in the official report of government. This is interesting because nobody else reported this. Third agency, whose head was R.N. Cow, which was created as an alternative to RAW because RAW was deemed ineffective in these operations. Well, according to Surya magazine, they are the ones who implanted these weapons. Look at what they wrote. The third agency kept a supply of lethal weapons flowing into the Golden Temple. The third agency allowed 47 railway stations to be blown up, so they can blame it on the sixth. And all these things were appearing in Indian newspapers almost on a weekly basis in those days. The third agency incited violence in Punjab, and for their gallant roles, senior officers of the third agency have been rewarded with police medals and prize foreign postings. So when you hear these major weapons were brought into the Warsaw, be very, very careful. The details of this are basically they were brought in by this agency, which essentially planted them for a media show after the operation. So they could show to the world that how we did the right thing. But all the Surya magazine has reported that no, it was government's job who did this. Six didn't have any of this stuff. That's why Pakistan was the easiest scapegoat. Oh, they're getting everything from Pakistan. Even if there's an iota of truth to it, none of this came from Pakistan. This was planted by, it's sort of like what Mossad does these days, which is the Israeli intelligence agency. They're the best in the world. And actually, there's a book called By Way of Deception. I highly recommend to all of you. And Viktor Kostrov, who's a defected agent of Mossad, he has written that they trained the army intelligence officers on these kind of things in his book. And he says not only did we train army people in Indian army, we also trained the Tamil Tigers. And they said this was a business for us, we trained both sides. So my point is, this kind of sophisticated training was being delivered by Mossad throughout the world. And Indian army used to send its employees, soldiers, to get this kind of training from Israel. Okay. This is on General Bragg, because he was a major actor in this whole scenario. This is a review done by ANDA General in the Indian Army's paper called Indian Defense Review. Major General Afsar Karim has written this. He says what? He says, I would like to believe what Bragg has said in his book, because he wrote a book justifying what he did. And he says, one wishes Bragg's attempts to explore what he calls certain myths had been more convincing. So his own colleague, who's reviewing this for the Indian Army, is saying he's not convincing in his version, which means he's lying. Second, and this is his conclusion, he says Akal Takht was damaged. He says Operation Blue Star was a failure from all angles, from Army's perspective, because Akal Takht was damaged beyond recognition, even before Bhindranwale and his followers were killed or captured. This is huge, guys. This is the Army's general writing in their review that forget about all these blames on Bhindranwale. We had already destroyed Akal Takht before he was even killed. Major collateral damage was caused to the temple complex, and there were large number of civilian casualties as a result of frontal assault on a constricted space. That's what tanks were used for. This is a frontal attack. You throw as many bombs as possible and kill as many people as possible. And look at the other thing. He says it is intriguing that if the police and the government really believed that the militant had only 200 to 250 weapons, the majority of which were 12 bore guns and 303 rifles, Where was the need to call in the army? He says, we already knew that they didn't have anything, but they still sent the army in there. This is a review by the General of Indian Army of the book which Barar wrote to justify what he did. And the Indian Army General is saying what Barar is saying is not convincing, which means he's lying about what he did. Now, Roy Chaudhary, again, I'm focusing a lot on army because army was used for this, and you guys need to be familiar with this kind of stuff. General Shankar Roy Chaudhary, who was the chief of army, former chief of army by then, by 2000, but this is what he wrote. There was an interview printed in imprint, and they asked him what he thought if Operation Blue Star was a success. And this is what he wrote. He says, no, certainly not. I don't think the right steps were taken. Operation Blue Star was totally unwarranted and a mistaken step. The party in power at Delhi at that time had taken the step more on political consideration. Remember the first slide? They wanted to capture the Hindu vote throughout India. So the political consideration was if we go demolish it, we will be voted into power again. And again, this is from a chief of Indian Army. I think it's pretty convincing what he's saying. Let's look at some casualty figures. The official government paper says 493 people were killed. They call them terrorists and others in their report, which basically was their way of saying total number of people killed were only less than 500. But an independent report produced by Citizens for Democracy said it was about 8,000. And they said there were thousands of people consisting of pilgrims, SGBC employees, Akali volunteers, and the army started firing from all sides. Remember this idea that there was no warning given? They weren't given a chance to leave if they wanted to, because if they're there to fight with militants, then the other people should be allowed to leave. It's a protocol. So they said no, none of that was allowed, and this is from Citizens for Democracy. Justice Sikri headed that, as in a non-Sikh. No Sikh was involved with this report. And I really want to dwell on this second part. He says, fierce battle lasted nearly 56 to 60 hours from 4 a.m. to 4th June to 4 p.m. on 6th June. Firing was incessant and continuous, and despite the white paper, several claims had no constraints. So again, they were given a blank check to go do whatever you need to do and kill them. He says they fired for 2 days in a row, 48 hours plus. Now, let me present the other side of it, which I find the most fascinating. So what this tells me is, you know how we hear the phrase, Sawa lakh se ek ladao? And we sometimes question that kind of idea. Even if I take the most liberal estimate, it says there were 150 people inside the Golden Temple. 150 people holding 70,000 to 150,000 people for 2 days. I think that's pretty remarkable, with very remedial weapons. See how we are always apologetic? We are not even looking from the other angle. So even those who had weapons, look at their courage, look at their stamina, look at their commitment, that they are holding the 4th largest standing army of the world. That's what it is. India is the 4th largest standing army in the world. I think it's pretty fascinating stuff. This is what our history is made up of. Let's look at some inhumane actions. No effort was made to identify the dead or inform their relatives. No postmortems, nothing. In every war, they try to do that even. Bodies were cremated immediately, no count was kept. Because they didn't want to make sure, they want to make sure people don't know how many they have killed. And if they keep a count, then they have an official figure of how many they have killed. No autopsies were performed, because autopsies will establish how they were killed. No medical aid, water or food provisions for the victims. Okay? And that's what Christian Science Monitor reported on the 8th June, just 2 days after what happened. They wrote on Saturday, medical workers in Amritsar said soldiers had threatened to shoot them if they gave food or water to sick pilgrims wounded in the attack and lying in the hospital. So even when they were removed from the Prakarma and the Darbar Sahib complex, while the pilgrims are in the hospital, even then they were not allowed, the medical workers were not allowed to give them food and water. I think we can make a pretty strong case for systematic and widespread misuse of power to eliminate and continue to eliminate minority targets in India, in this case 6. Sunday Times of London had written this. They did not just stop here. Thousands of people have disappeared from the Punjab since the siege of 6 Golden Temple here 7 weeks ago. In some villages, men between 15 to 35 have been bound for